So this is just Pirelli Tire's reporting journey in integrated reporting, and I guess the goal is to just show an example of one company and how we do our reporting. So I am in charge of public affairs and sustainability for North America for Pirelli Tire, and Pirelli is multinational, headquartered in Italy, and so I don't write the report. So I'm just going to show it to you on behalf of my colleagues in Milan who are in the headquarters and who are really in charge of the global sustainability program. So I can't take credit for any of it. We are actually we're going to publish our 2019 integrated report in June, so I don't have that yet. So I'll just show a little bit of the 2018 report. But I have a presentation here which I'll run through quickly, just in case anyone's interested about sort of the history of what we do. And I think it's interesting only insofar as it can be an example of what really any company can do. So we started in 2000 with our first environmental report, in 2005 with our first sustainability report, and that was using the G2 version of GRI. And then in 2006 we developed some software to track all of our KPIs, all of our data, and that actually helped immensely because just the process of collecting data, monitoring where we were against targets, and then being able to collect it easily into a report meant that basically our report got longer and longer. And I know that there's a debate in the US, probably not among this group, but about keeping reports short. And Pirelli has always been of the idea that as much data as you can get into the report, the better. And, you can just use search tools to find what you need. So we do have a very long report. And then in 2008, we had our report audited for the first time and that was using GRI G3 standards. And then in 2014, we did our first integrated annual report. And I must say that the first year, it was more like sticking a chapter into the financial report. And then gradually over time, we've gotten better about, really using all of the reporting standards, IIRC standards, and weaving the storyline together more, reporting on the 6 capitals and so on. And then in 2017, this EU directive, so we are listed, the company's listed on the Milan Stock Exchange, not in the US. So we are subject to the EU directive on mandatory disclosure of sustainability information. It was easy to implement that because we already had that. And so this is a little bit of a background on the EU directive, which I probably don't need to go through, but it applies to large companies with at least 500 employees. It asks to publicly provide information on ESG matters, environmental, social, and employee matters, diversity, respect for human rights, anti-corruption and bribery, and it does not state which reporting framework to use. And although I think there's discussion now about actually stepping that up and making some indications on reporting standards. And then some provisions on responsibility and on assurance, third-party assurance. And oh, sorry, let me go back. Yeah, it just requires the company to state which international reporting framework was used. So we started with voluntary reporting, and then it became more mandatory under this EU directive. This bottom line, the CSRDM, is our data management software tool. And we also traditionally, like from the beginning, we had our sustainability department and our risk management department integrated, so into one department. And we began early on applying the WBC SD CASO risk management guidance in terms of adding that layer of ESG into our risk management process and our reporting process. So we go through, we obviously start with stakeholder engagement and following the AA 1000 framework. And we do pretty extensive stakeholder engagement. So we do the, every 2 years we do it on the materiality that we're going to be reporting on, but then we also do stakeholder engagement in each region where we have manufacturing on different topics in order to make sure that we are engaging with local stakeholders everywhere and capturing, first of all, feedback on our sustainability strategy, both locally and internationally, and then also on projects and, you know, collecting stakeholder input on how best we can contribute in certain areas. So for instance, I did one on road safety in the US. Here's our materiality, the latest one that was from the 2018 report. And then this was just a slide that I had in this presentation on, which I know you're all familiar with, the integrated reporting 6 capitals, which we started weaving into the report. And then, so we use the GRI as kind of the basis, and most of our KPIs are collected based on the GRI materials. This was just some examples. We don't need to go through this, but anyway, so we collect the data. Well, first I would say before this step is the step in terms of setting goals and targets. So we do that very scientifically, and then in the headquarters, the targets are set together with each department and each manufacturing area, and then broken down into interim targets and so on. And one of the things that we do regionally is that, so one of my roles as the regional sustainability manager is to collect quarterly monitoring on all of these local targets that we have for the US, Canada, and Mexico, and make sure we're on track for the annual target, to reach the annual targets, and if we're not, what is the reason? And then that way we can coordinate with the headquarters on you know, mitigating problems during the year. And this process, I think, really allows for all the different departments to feel that they're involved in the sustainability process. And we also have the country managers. So it's not me that's ultimately responsible for reaching those targets and getting that data into the headquarters. It's actually the country manager, and that way it gets done. You know, people take it seriously. So the country manager is ultimately the regional sustainability manager accountable for the data, and you know, the country manager's bonus will depend on reaching these sustainability targets. So we collect the data, then we share the data through that proprietary software, and then we have various checks and controls going kind of back and forth. And then in the headquarters, it's all put together, consolidated, and I can't read that because it's covered up by something. But then we have, let's see. Oh yeah, then we do the collect the put it into the report. So these are the various processes, and it's just, these slides are just kind of to show how detailed and complicated it is. And then in terms of the control system, this is something that the EU directive gets into a little bit, is the you know, who is responsible, what are the controls, and then what are the auditors doing? How do the auditors go about the auditing process? And then I wanted to get into, this is just something that I like to share to US audiences who think that the sustainability report should be short. And just to say that you can make a brochure for a different kind of audience, but in our opinion, as Pirelli, the sustainability report should be, first of all, it should be an integrated financial and non-financial report and tell stories and so on, but it should be, in our opinion, actually very lengthy. And so if you want to make a brochure, you can do that separately for marketing, as we do. And this is just an excerpt from the 2018 annual report. So we start out talking about the different frameworks, and then we immediately go into the 6 capitals. And so starting with financial capital, and then talking about productive capital, the manufacturing sites around the world, the sustainability strategy in manufacturing, and then we talk about intellectual capital, go into the R&D, and particularly as it relates to sustainability. And then we go into the other capital, so the human capital. We have targets for all of these. And then social and relational capitals, and talk about the stakeholder dialogue again. And then all the frameworks, and we do have an index, for a GRI index, and an index with the SDGs in the back of the report. So we also we're trying to kind of weave in the sustainable development goals as well, more and more. And I would say it's a process of every year there's kind of more layers. Then I was just going to show quickly some slides from our recent, we just announced a new, I always forget if it's a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, because we have a little bit of, we have goals for different time frames. But these were our latest achievements that we announced in February in terms of some of our mostly environmental targets. And so, like, for instance, significant progress on health and safety, on water withdrawal, and other things. And then this is just a list of how well we did in some of those ratings and rankings. And I'm sorry if these slides look like they're a little cut off, but this was part of the presentation around our sustainability strategy going forward to 2030, and looking at things like technological breakthroughs, demographic changes, future mobility, changes in the automotive industry, connected vehicles, all of these things that we look at as we're putting together the sustainability strategy, which we always announce hand in hand with the operational strategy. Climate change, cybersecurity, future of work, and all of that. So we try to have a really strategic conversation within the company, and then in the conversations with investors, and as we explain our strategy. So, and then again, weaving in the Sustainable Development Goals. This is again part of that strategy about circular economy and life cycle. What we're doing in each phase of the life cycle. There's a lot on this slide which I won't get into in detail, but definitely quite a bit of work in the supply chain, in raw materials, in terms of both emissions, but also things like human rights and zero deforestation. We have natural rubber, which is like palm oil. So we do a lot of work in the supply chain with of natural rubber, both our own work as Pirelli, but also collaborative work with the industry around that. In manufacturing, all of these environmental action plans. And then the main footprint is in the use phase, so when the tires are on the vehicle. And so a lot of our R&D work is for that, making tires that are much more fuel efficient. And then we have some work on end of life and designing tires for circular economy. We just committed to science-based targets, and I'll show you the science-based targets, and then carbon neutral by 2030. And 100% of our electricity is supposed to come from renewable energy by 2025. Of course, not all the way we power our plants is electric, but for the electricity part, this is the new target. Materials innovation, there's a lot of work in terms of the R&D, intellectual capital on new materials and more sustainable materials, and we have several goals and targets in that area as well. And then these are just some slides on waste and water. We have lots of information on energy, CO2 emissions, and so on. And then this is on human capital, reducing accidents, workplace accidents, reskilling to new digital competencies, STEM talent, open collaboration, open source research, and then we talk a lot about short-term and long-term planning. So trying to make our strategy more long-term. Supply chain sustainability. We have a pretty in-depth sustainability program in procurement, and so in terms of when we select suppliers, they go through a rigorous pre-qualification process, including a lot of ESG assessment. We require them to sign a sustainability clause and commit to our sustainability program, and then we do audits, and then we also do supplier awards. And then this is just a slide on our commitment to road safety, and that's what I have. I hope that was useful.